Hi, everyone, and welcome to Autism Hope Library. I am just so excited. We have one of my favorite people. I've known her for a very long time, and you guys are in for such a special treat. Today, we have Andrea Pollack, and she is going to be talking about confident parenting, and she is from Autism Parent Solutions. Thank you so much, Andrea, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am just so excited. I, of course, have known you many, many years, too many years to count, and always inspired, always in awe. And I just think those watching and listening today, like I said earlier, are in for a real treat. And you have so many, so many great solutions and so many great answers to all those questions that often many of us are wondering maybe at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So I think that what you're doing is just very amazing, and I'm excited to talk to you today about that. Before we get started, I want to ask, why are you so passionate?
Well, as you know, I have a 23-year-old autistic son, and years ago, I had been practicing law for 19 years, and I could not find a school that was successful for him. So I pulled him out of school and homeschooled him for 8 years. And when he was ready to go back to school, I really felt that it was a shame to take all I had learned with me and go back to law. So I decided instead to go back to school. I got my master's in education, and I decided to create a practice that would help parents. And, I failed first so that they don't have to make as many mistakes as I did.
Well, I never believe you failed. I think you just tried a whole bunch of things and you found what worked and what didn't work as well, because I've never known you to fail at anything. But, I am always in I'm just always in just amazement of all that you do. I remember when you said you were going back to school to go, to do this. And then when you first created Autism Parent Solutions, and just listening to you a few weeks ago when we got a chance to kind of chat as just moms and, just kind of get to hang out for a bit, of all the families that you're helping, really around the world. And so I really am grateful that you're taking this time to do this interview, because I know there's a lot of families that are going to be listening and watching that we're just going to really make a really meaningful impact. So with that, I'm going to start with our first question. Okay. What are the most common parenting challenges that you see or that you see in the parents that you serve?
Well, there are two big categories. One is uncertainty. They feel a lot of uncertainty. They don't know what to do. They feel like they're failing their child because they try creating boundaries and that sometimes doesn't work, or they let things go and that doesn't work. And that uncertainty, can really interfere with a parent's confidence. And they resort to yelling sometimes, punishment, other old-fashioned traditional behavior techniques that generally don't work well with our kids. So that uncertainty is a big one. And the second one is overwhelm, right? As we know. Because, in addition to all of the attention and supervision that our children need, that uncertainty compounds the overwhelm and the fear, the worry of the future and what will happen. So I would say uncertainty and overwhelm are the two big ones.
And why is it so difficult for parents to put some of these strategies into practice?
That's a great question. Again, I would say two big reasons. One is, I speak to a lot of parents who seek out advice and they get it and they might try something, but then there's no continuation, right? They get a piece of advice and they might try something that doesn't work, but there's no way to go back, get follow-up advice to tweak their solution, to try to keep trying new things. So that consistent follow-up and feedback can really help parents implement those strategies. But the bigger part really is that there's really a big mindset issue that fuels our parenting. And a lot of it is hidden. We're not really aware of what we're doing in the mindset department, right? Or the perspectives. So having somebody to help you with some feedback that's obviously non-judgmental, that can help parents identify what's getting in the way of implementing their goals. But it's a common thing, right? We know this because if it was just about strategies, you could read a book and do it, right? So there has to be a mindset component that is the thing that gets in our way of using some of those strategies.
Well, I know at Autism Parent Solutions, it's really parent coaching. And so, what is parent coaching? I think everybody should have a coach, right? And so, regardless if you have a neurotypical child or an individual on the spectrum, but let's really dive into what is parent coaching.
Well, parent coaching, it starts with offering some of the strategies, right? But it is that ongoing feedback and participation to help parents put those strategies to work. And the reason why that's so important is because a lot of times when parents get advice and they try to put something into place and it doesn't work, over time they get a feeling that nothing's going to work, right? So this way, with the back and forth, it really helps them use the strategies very effectively, right? There's a gap in between what you know and what you're able to do, right? Like I said, what you could read in a book, but implementing it does require some really effective back and forth. And then the second is really addressing those mindset issues, helping parents see where some of their mindset issues, where their perspectives might be interfering with being the most effective parent they can be.
Well, and so, can you give an example of that? Because I'm thinking a parent sitting there going, okay, yeah, I get that, but let's give it a bigger picture, right? So, Andrea, can you give us an example of what that means?
Sure. So one great example that comes up all the time for parents is their instinct to punish a child in order to get the child to do what they want or to cooperate, right? We have that instinct because we were brought up that way. Our parents used punishment. Our teachers use punishment. So that's a common instinct that we've developed over the course of our lives, right? We also have external pressure to punish, right? If we see our children doing something, there's always a mother-in-law or something like that in the picture who says you shouldn't let them get away with that, right? So because we were raised being punished and our society reinforces that, when we don't punish, we have a fear that we're sort of letting them get away with something, okay? So that's a perspective that gets in our way because we know when we do that kind of punishment, it inflames the situation, yet we're worried about letting them get away with something.
I think that's a great example. Also, sometimes it could be the opposite too, right? So where you're like, oh, but they have autism. And so you kind of let them get away with too much. And people kind of look at you and judge you for that too. But you're like, oh no, it's okay. They're allowed to do that. And I know, as a parent, obviously myself, I've gone through this kind of roller coaster where in the beginning, when you first get the diagnosis, you're like, oh, no, it's okay. They're allowed to do that. They have autism. And then you get to a point where you're like, well, I don't care if they have autism. They still need to learn the proper right and wrong of the society that we live in. And then you start getting a little harder. And then you kind of like this happy medium. And I don't know, I've never been a neurotypical parent, but I'm going to assume it's probably the same.
It is. I mean, it's always a balance between helping them succeed and enabling them to express themselves and be themselves, and also to learn to observe some boundaries that we need to learn to be citizens in this community, right?
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. Parents do tend to go to one extreme or another. And sometimes it's both extremes. It's just different examples, right? Either they totally let them get away with it, or they punish them because they're afraid of letting them get away with it. But neither of those two solutions really helps the children learn the skills that they need to succeed.
Absolutely. I love that. So you talked a little bit about mindset. So what is the mindset shift that would be, helpful for a parent?
So if we think that our child is being irresponsible or lazy, I would use the example of homework, okay? So say your child's not able to sit and do homework, right? Because either they're fried from the day or because the homework looks just too overwhelming, so they shut down and they can't start, right? What they need in that moment is support. But sometimes what we do is threats or punishment, right? Because we want to make them do their homework. But that often makes the situation get worse, and it doesn't help a child then address their homework, okay? So the shift would be, instead of believing that our children are irresponsible or lazy, in which case we'd be more likely to punish, if our perspective is instead, they need our support. it helps us look for the ways that we can support them. We don't want to do the homework for them. We don't want to support them more than they need, right? We still want them to be challenged, but we need to be able to bring the situation and the challenge down to a level that they can handle, to set them up for success so that they can feel successful doing their homework.
I love that. And I think that often, when we're stressed, at least I can speak from my own personal experience, anytime you're in that kind of like, oh, I'm running late, or I have to get this done, or your list is like way too long anyways to begin with, if you're like me, and many of us are like that, right? And you gave the example of homework, right? If you're constantly if you're worried or you're stressed, your kids pick up on that too. So that mindset of, having to get it perfect, having to get it right, you've already set them up for failure. At least I can see that with my own son. If I am stressed, running late, whatever, and I'm trying to rush, it's never, ever going to be a good idea.
Absolutely. I mean, I see that all the time where that we start from a place of stress and then we just want them to do it, right? So then we yell and punish, which I always say, is like throwing fuel on the flame, right?
Yeah.
They started out not being able to do it, and now we've actually eliminated any possibility that they can do it.
Yeah. And now it's like you have to wait until the next day or wait for the next moment, because at that moment, you always have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Right? Like, okay, so what? I get the check off box done for whatever that is, but at what cost? Like, what did that cost me? And does it matter that I do it now, or does it matter that maybe I do it 2 hours from now or the next day? And now having that association of, oh, I'm in a good mindset, everything's great. The individual now with autism basically can feel accepted and loved, and really not feeling that pressure, because I can only imagine what some of our kiddos are feeling.
Right. Well, in my experience, you actually can't get it done at that point because the child is so dysregulated that they really can't use the thinking part of their brains to do that homework. Right. Yeah. Once we, throw that fuel on the fire and everybody's in dysregulation. So we really don't have a choice at that point, but to put it off till another time. And again, if we can embrace the perspective that they need the support, that they're not doing this intentionally, even when it looks like they are. Sometimes it looks like they are because they're trying to cover up the fact that they don't know how to do it, or they are fearful of doing it. Right. So I often say that if when in doubt, go for support instead of punishment, right? It doesn't mean that punishment is off the table. It doesn't mean that certain behaviors are okay and we're going to we're never going to set boundaries. Of course we are. But when in doubt, your child more likely needs support and can learn from you supporting them more than they'll ever learn from the punishment.
Yeah, I think that's a great mindset. I definitely want to talk a little bit about what Autism Parent Solutions is, because, for some people, obviously we want to go to your website. So first, let's, how do they find you? But then let's also kind of define what you offer for families, because we talked about the definition of, what parents might be going through and what that might look like. But I also want them to understand the real tools and resources by going to your website that that they'll be able to gain, and what you have to offer.
Sure. Thank you for asking. So the website is autismparentsolutions.com. Okay. autismparentsingularsolutions.com. And there's a free webinar that you can watch that's connected to the website. You can watch that and get, good feel for the philosophy and the approach. And I run a parenting program, and some of the material is shared in video so that parents can watch it. What I discovered was when I was doing it in person or in video, but, with other people present, it was hard for parents to show up consistently, if their child was having an issue or they're just so busy. So some of it is pre-recorded, and that's done for the convenience of the parents. But then in addition, we do 2 small group question and answer sessions per week, because the group situation is really, really helpful, because you hear other parents ask questions, you learn from the solutions to their issues. Even if it's not your issue, what you're learning is how to apply strategies to problems, right? And then you can generalize from there. So even if answering a question that has to do with something you are not struggling with, I generalize it for parents so that they know how they can apply it to their situations. The other thing that's so interesting is it's so much easier to see solutions when they're not happening to you. So a lot of times parents gain the confidence to see, oh, I know how to do all of this. It's just harder to do when it's happening to you. So the group context is very, very helpful. And then in addition, we do some individual one-on-one, so we can talk about anything that's more sensitive that you wouldn't want to talk about in a group. We also use those sessions to set goals and expectations because, we don't want to just give more information, right? There's so much information out there. What we're doing is we're giving really useful information. We want to see parents make progress, see them meet their goals, and see a transformation.
I love that. How I think of it as you're describing it is almost like it's a specialized parent support group with an amazing coach that kind of coaches you through the different situations that you might have by giving you real tools and solutions that you can take home and apply immediately. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I mean, it really is a good combination of education and support, which often don't come together. You can get like parenting education, they'll tell you stuff, which,
it's great.
Yeah, it is great. Like no disrespect to that. And a lot of the information is really helpful, but without the support to implement it, sometimes it's not as helpful as it could be. Or there are parent support situations, which is great, but if they're not teaching you new skills, it doesn't go as far. So we've combined it into one program that's very impactful.
I know this is kind of like an easy way to think of it, but this is what came to my mind. So hopefully this is okay because I don't cook. I'm like the worst cook in the world. And so I love to eat and I love to order. But it'd be like if you said, okay, Kristen, here's your shopping list and you need to go buy this stuff and good luck. Like I wouldn't even know. I mean, I know what the word saute is now, but at one point in my life, I did not know what that was. So like if it said that word or like, and there's certain even recipes now with like different spices. I didn't even know that was a spice. And I'm sure others are watching. I hope others are watching that feel my pain when you get like a list and you go to the grocery store and you have no idea what aisle that is. And you're like, oh, that's in the produce section. I didn't even know that was a vegetable. Like I had no idea. And so I feel like, when you're talking about, it's not just teaching somebody or telling somebody because a lot of times, a lot of different interviews, even that I do, we hear about different ways to help, but there's no actual, and this is the next step. So it's like, you're not only just saying what to do and here's the recipe, here's your shopping list, but you're actually there going, and now when you go in the grocery store, look for aisle 6. Okay, nope, it's right there on the 3rd shelf. All right, now when you get home, we have all the proper ingredients. And now what we're going to do is this is how you actually make it. This is what it means to, blend something. This is what it means to saute. This is what it means to fry or whatever. I mean, I know that all sounds simple, but
yeah, no, it's a great analogy. I mean, but what we do also is we tailor it to your child. Exactly. Right. So it's not general information. There are strategies that do apply broadly, but the devil is in the details, right? It's the details of how we apply that to your specific child, where your mindset might be getting in your way, right? Yeah. So it's very personal and individualized, even though we're doing it in a small group. And another good thing about that analogy is, like, let's say you did that and you burned it once, then you would never say like, that's it, I can't cook again.
Yeah.
Right. But that's what happens if you have nowhere to go back to say, well, what do I do when, it singes on the ends? Right. And you say, okay, great. That's happened before. Let's talk about, and then what happened and how can we shift it this way? So that's what the back and forth is very helpful with.
If you burn the souffle, doesn't mean that you can never make a souffle again. It just means we're going to teach you a different way, or we're going to talk about what you did wrong. Not that you really did something wrong, but you know what I mean? It's like, what other strategies could we have used? Right. And so, right. Me and my analogies, I can't.
Yeah, no, I love it. And here's the thing, what it does ultimately is it builds parenting confidence, right? So when parents approach a situation with confidence, it changes the whole way the child receives it. It changes the whole interaction. It changes the energy between them, right? So the whole idea is building that confidence. And I always tell my parents, confident parenting is not perfect parenting, right? We're going to make mistakes. That's okay. We're humaning, right? But the idea is you have a confidence because you know that you generally know how to do these things. You're willing to try things. You're willing to make a mistake, get back up, dust yourself off, try again, stay positive. So it's all about building that confidence, because it goes back to the first question you asked me, right? Which is, what are the symptoms I see, right? And the first one is uncertainty, right? You don't have to have that uncertainty. You might be wrong, but you can do it with certainty. No, but you would, you would know how to do something and then know how to fix it if the first try didn't work.
Well, and I think it's also cool for our kiddos. And I say kiddos, and I say this in every interview. Anytime I say kiddos, it's of all ages, because we all have somebody's kiddo, belongs to somebody, right? But I'm learning this with my own son, is that it's so okay for me to mess up, and I let him know when I mess up about anything. And I let him know that it's super cool to make a mistake, because now we get to try again. And I think often, we think of ourselves as super parents, and like we're supposed to know everything. And I joke often that my super cape must be in the dry cleaners permanently, because I clearly am not the super parent. But I love that it's okay to make a mistake, get back up, but it's also okay to show that example to our individuals on the spectrum, because often they always, I know with my son, it's like they have a hard time trying sometimes again and again. And so I think if they see us as a model of like, man, I totally messed that up. And, I just had a situation the other day, and I was telling my son, hey, mommy's not perfect, dude. Like, seriously, like, I totally messed that up. I love you, and I'll get it right. I'll get it right next time, or I'll try better next time. And he's like looking at me, and he's like, okay. And it was like so simple, right?
I love that so much. And I will often tell my parents, it's okay to apologize, to say like, I made a mistake and I'm sorry. I shouldn't have yelled at you in that moment. I'm sorry. I was feeling stressed and I'm human, and I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. Kids love it when we apologize, right? They do need to see us as people and as vulnerable, and they love it. And why shouldn't we say we're sorry when we are, right? I love that. Owning up to your mistakes, trying better next time, because you are modeling. It's okay to make mistakes and try again.
Part of being a human being, and that's, they're going to make mistakes and we're going to make mistakes. So if we're not living off a script, and it's totally okay. And I love what you're doing here. Now, for that parent that's, sitting who knows where, parents or caregivers or all of the above, what message would you like to send to them that might be struggling with uncertainty, as you said, and might be a bit overwhelmed?
Well, first, what I would say is that it doesn't have to be that hard, right? Parents often don't realize that in some ways they're really normalizing their pain. They get so used to it that they just, they don't seek that relief because they think it just has to be this way. So that's first of all. But also, I talk to a lot of parents who say, I've tried everything, right? And we know that's not true, right? They haven't had the feedback. They haven't had good input into how to tweak it just a little bit to try to make it more successful. Okay. And I love that because, consistent with your message at Autism Hope Alliance, there are always places to make changes in our mindset, changes in our strategies, and it helps our children build their skills. And it builds them in very small steps. But as we know, those small steps add up to big gains, and there's always room for hope.
I love that. Always room for hope. That is definitely our motto here. And it's been my motto for a very long time since we met. Hope, I think, is just a word we probably say more times than I can count. So thank you so much, Andrea, for everything that you're doing. I think the parents and caregivers that are, taking your program and participating and getting online and watching your videos, honestly, I wish we had it when we were first starting out. And I know one last thing, it doesn't matter what age that they're starting at, right? Like if a family is seeing this and their kid's 32 or 52 or 2, it doesn't actually matter, correct?
Absolutely. There's always, if you're struggling, if you feel like you don't know, how to help your child, there are people who can help you. And I would love the opportunity to do that, or other people as well. There is help out there. You don't have to sit in your pain. You can go out and still seek help with what you need, what answers you need.
And you help families all over the world, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I do focus on the United States, but I've had people reach out. I did a whole program for a group in Brazil, and I currently have a client who's from Australia. She heard me on a podcast and she found my website and she signed up. So I'm happy to support anybody anywhere.
I love that. So guys, if you guys are listening, just know, there's help out there. There's always hope. And there's people like Andrea that are, went back to school because they've already, basically you already had a ton of education and then your kiddo, but now you went back and you're just making even more of an impact and more of a difference. And to me, it's you're paying it forward. And thank you for everything that you're doing, Andrea.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you saying all of that. And I really appreciate you having me and giving me the opportunity to speak with your community. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's our community. And I love you dearly. And to everybody watching, again, there is always, always hope. And please check out Andrea's website. Until next time. Bye, guys.